Is Parasomnia by Dream Theater their next masterpiece? This is their 16th studio album that was released on February 7th, 2025. I think the big news with this album is that it is the first album with Mike Portnoy on drums since Black Clouds and Silver Linings from 2009. Also their first album with Mike Portnoy where he isn't a co-producer since the album Falling into Infinity from 1997. The album was produced by guitarist John Petrucci and was released on the Inside Out label. This is somewhat of a concept album as songs deal with the sleep disorder known as Parasomnia. The previous album was called A View from the Top of the World, and I remember that I reviewed that on my channel. It was a very good album, and I think this band released a few good albums considering their 2019 album, Distance Over Time, was also a strong record, much better than The Astonishing from 2016, which was boring, but I'm not here to talk about their past albums. We're here to talk about the new album, Parasomnia. The album's kind of long, clocking in at 71 minutes. There are 8 tracks. Also interesting, they open the album with a 5-minute instrumental track, and there's a 1.5-minute instrumental, and I'll talk about all that as well. John Petrucci wrote the lyrics for 3 tracks, James LaBrie for 2 of them, and 1 song written by Mike Portnoy. I'll cover all of that, but as of right now, let me go through the tracks. The opening track is called In the Arms of Morpheus. It's an instrumental. It has a runtime of 5 minutes and 22 seconds. Seems to set the tone. The album begins with some sound effects followed by some dark and ominous sounds. Almost sounds like the opening of some kind of horror movie. You hear the ticking of a clock, some eerie notes played on what sounds like a cello. Sound like something from the movie Psycho or something like that. Once the main song kicked in, you hear lots of different sounds. This is where you hear Mike Portnoy. He reintroduces himself with this awesome drum playing. I was really happy to hear that, and they're playing some really heavy guitar riffs. I'm really happy to hear that as well, because I haven't heard really heavy riffs in a while with this band. But the sound is not just heavy. It has futuristic keyboards played by Jordan Rudess. The song gets brighter and more melodic towards the end of the song, where they start to sound like a typical progressive rock band. So far, the song is letting me know that there will be a lot of darkness on this album. Track number 2 begins and seems to have the natural flow from one song to the next. This song is called Night Terror, written by John Petrucci. It has a runtime of 9 minutes 55 seconds. It was also the first single. It's another song with a very big sound. It has a very dark tone. The guitar riffs still sound very heavy. The song has a faster pace and a darker feel, but it still had those twists and turns, what you would expect from this band. This is also the first time on the album where you hear James LaBrie and his vocals are still in top form. The song has some awesome drumming and keyboard sounds, and there are also some sound effects added in. But it's not like these guys are just showing off their skills. The song also has this catchy chorus and some pretty cool hooks. I like the part around the halfway point where they completely shift gears and change up the rhythm. The song also has some extended instrumental sections, lots of keyboard runs, and some cool bass guitar playing. John Petrucci plays some cool neoclassical style soloing in the second half of the song, as well as uses different guitar effects, and he does this while playing the solos. Overall, I like the song when I first heard it a few weeks ago, and I still think it's a great track. The next track is called A Broken Man. It was written by James LaBrie. It has a runtime of 8 minutes and 30 seconds. It's the second single. I remember when I did a short review of it, I was expecting a power ballad based on the song title, but what I got was the complete opposite. It's a heavy track with some big guitar riffs, a very grandiose sound with different sound effects. The song tells a story about a man who suffers from PTSD, has memories of fighting in a war. The drumming on the track is awesome, but so is the drumming on every track, so I will probably be saying that a lot. Another one of those songs has a darker tone. James LaBrie sings in a more aggressive tone, but he also gives more an emotional delivery when he sings the pre-chorus. The song has lots of different changes and goes in many different directions. I think the sound bites that are added in adds this other dimension to the song. I like the keyboard playing. It has this classic progressive rock sound. There's also a weird turn around the 6-minute mark where it sounds like something you would hear on a Joe Satriani album or something like that. But that section was brief, but it really gets heavy afterwards. The next track is called Deep Asleep. This was written by John Petrucci with a runtime of 11 minutes and 6 seconds. This one also has this dark and haunting intro with some classical music sounding melodies. Sounds like some dark classical music. It evoked images of a haunted house or something like that. But when the guitar riff kicked in, it was very heavy. Another song with a killer guitar riff And I think that's something that's lacking on a few of their previous albums. After this, Jordan Rudess comes in with some keyboards that adds another layer of darkness, followed by a melodic solo by John Petrucci. Song seems to go back and forth between the heavy sections and the more melodic ones. James LaBrie gives a darker vocal performance on this track. The sound is very big and epic with lots of layers of sound. All the instruments are in play, and this track has even moments where you can hear the bass guitar. Let me also mention the band knows how to make the most of these long run times. You don't get bored during any of these songs. There's so many different twists and turns and changes. It's also interesting that during the last minute of the song, you think it's over, but then they add in this short classical music melody as they end. Next song is called Midnight Messiah. It's one written by Mike Portnoy and has a runtime of 7 minutes and 58 seconds. This was the third single that was released about 2 weeks ago. I didn't get a chance to listen to it until now. This one has some of those dark and haunting sound clips and some heavy guitar riffs. Sounds similar to other tracks. I'm not saying it's repetitive. It's just the sound is very cohesive. This one has some of the best guitar riffs, and James LaBrie delivers a more sinister sounding vocal delivery. Song takes this big turn after about 3 minutes where it really picks up the pace and goes pretty fast, which is something this band doesn't do very often. I like these drastic tempo changes where they do that mid-paced to the fast. I think that makes the song more memorable. This has some of the best guitar playing by John Petrucci as he completely shreds during the guitar solo. After this is the track Are We Dreaming, just an interlude with a runtime of 1 minute and 28 seconds. It's a short track, sounds like classical music, people whispering in the background. Hard to understand them, but the only thing I understood was when they said, Are We Dreaming? This is like a connector between the previous track and the one after it. And the penultimate song is called Bend the Clock. This one has lyrics written by James LaBrie, has a runtime of 7 minutes, 24 seconds. This is one of those Dream Theater ballads. I'll be honest with you, I've never been a big fan of Dream Theater ballads, but this one was not too bad. It's a softer song with acoustic guitars and pianos and other sounds, and they incorporated some electric guitars and keyboards, and that made it sound more like a progressive rock song, so that made it much better. The song is similar to some of their past ballads with some big vocals and lots of melody. I also like the guitar solo on this track. I thought it felt very good. This is just a typical James LaBrie type of song that you hear on most of their albums. The last song is called The Shadowman Incident. The song has lyrics written by John Petrucci. It's the longest song with a runtime of 19 minutes and 32 seconds. One of their epic closers, something this band has done many times before. This one has a pretty cool heavy guitar riff, almost like some classic doom mixed with neoclassical. The guitar riff was pretty cool. They brought in these spooky sounding keyboards and made it sound like a haunted house or something like that. It was one of those old, big and epic classical music pieces, but mixed with metal music. That was the feeling I got from the song. As you would expect, the song went through different changes. You don't hear James LaBrie until about 5 minutes into the song. The first part with his vocals is very emotional. He's telling a story about a child who had a scary dream. Kind of reminded me of Alice Cooper's Welcome to My Nightmare because it had this dark and creepy feeling. The song was big and emotional. There was a big shift in the song around 7 minutes where they speed up the song and add in these sound bites. This part of the song had some really cool keyboard sounds and a much faster rhythm. Then there was this instrumental section about halfway through the song where they had these creepy sounds. It goes into an extended instrumental section, and it has been like a few minutes since I mentioned Mike Portnoy's drumming, but some of his best drumming can be heard at this point in the song. The song is a progressive metal epic with lots of different time signature changes. It has lots of big guitar riffs, lots of classical music inspired keyboards and things like that. There's this weird jazz piano section they add in somehow. They make it work. There's a lot of piano playing and bass guitar. Then during the last 5 minutes of the song, there are a lot more instrumental sections and they bring back the vocals. Then in the last minute of the song, it sounds like a melody from a classical music song, and they end with some sound effects, which sounds like some type of movie score, and you hear a voice that says, wake up with an alarm clock. So I guess the idea is that the entire album was just a dream. Now for my final thoughts, I think this album has one of those best albums since XXX album type of thing that we usually say in these types of reviews. But I would say their best album since Black Clouds and Silver Linings, their heaviest album since Train of Thought, and the darkest album since maybe nothing, because probably their darkest album, and at least in my opinion, these things can be up for debate. But in general, it's a very good album. It's the type of album you want to listen to from front to back. Everything sounds cohesive. It feels like the songs need to be listened to in the order they're placed on the album, and I think that helps with the flow of the album. It's the type of album that won't be remembered for its singles, but will be remembered for the experience just from like front to back. So it's an awesome album. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Probably my album of the month so far, unless something else beats it, but who knows. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Check out my review of the previous album, A View from the Top of the World, and you can check that out. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Please give this video a like. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you have not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.